is on the ground in Somaliland and brings us the following.
Today is a historic and golden day for all Somaliland people.
Élection présidentielle au Somaliland.
Cette élection aurait dû avoir lieu il y a 2 ans, mais à l'époque, faute d'argent,
Voters in Somaliland cast their ballot.
la démocratie fonctionne car cela pourrait avoir
Back in history. Voters in Somalia, 6 million Bihi Abdi.
Looking forward to the possibility of Somaliland.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Idilkiin baddaawadayaal soo dhawaada meel kastoo aad naga daawanaysaan. Waxaanu halkan idinkula wadaagaynaa waxyaabihii ay warbaahinta caalamku ka tiri doorashadii qabsantay 13 November 2024 taasi oo si weyn uga yaabisay guud ahaanba beesha caalamka isla markaana la filayo inay Somaliland u horseedo aqoonsi caalamiya. haddaba waxa dalka soo booqday intii ay socotay doorashadu warbaahinta ugu afka dheer leh dunida ama kuwa ugu caansan ee loogu kalsoonida badan yahay dhanka wartaminta. waxaanay warbaahintu qaada dhigtay qaabkii farshaxanimada iyo sidoo kale dimuqraadiyadda ku dhehnayd ee bulshadu codkooda u dhiibteen iyagoona dhanka kala bogaadiyay sida wanaagsan ee asxaabta qaranku ay doorashada u wada galeen isla markaana ay bulshada u wada tuseen inay ka wada shaqeynayaan rabitaanka Somaliland. haddaba daawadayaal ku soo dhawaada barnaamijkaas.
Closer to home in Somaliland, more than 1 million registered voters today went to the polls in Somaliland to elect their president, as the country, which declared its separation from Somalia 33 years ago, went into a historic vote that saw iris recognition technology used to identify voters. Our very own Emmanuel Toe is on the ground in Somaliland and brings us the following.
From as early as 6 a.m., long queues meandering through Somaliland's capital, Hargeisa, as more than 1.2 million voters from the country's total population of about 6 million turned up for the presidential election. President Muse Bihi, who is flying the ruling party Kulmiye's flag, leading the country to the ballot, first to cast his vote as he seeks to extend his 7-year tenure for another 5 years after elections were delayed for 2 years, calling on the country to remain peaceful regardless of the outcome of the vote.
Anyone who makes chaos today, we're recognizing him or her as one of the enemies of Somaliland who are against the development of this country.
The opposition leader Abdul Rahman Mohammed of the Wadani party also exercising his democratic right and remaining hopeful of a win.
Call to the people of Somaliland to benefit from this opportunity and decide their future and children's future.
Faisal Ali Hussein of Uid Party also cast his vote amid a huge turnout, and for the first time the country deployed an iris recognition system used to identify the voters and piloted in more than half of the polling stations.
This will be the first election that iris verification will be implemented here in Somaliland. We have decided to use a pilot, and we're piloting it at the regional capital cities.
This is not the first time I voted. The iris was good, satisfactory, quick. I'm very happy with it.
The voter wears this black device on their eyes, and the system automatically reads the information after recognizing the iris as captured during the voter registration process.
You might wait for 1 hour, but when you go inside, there's 2 systems. You have the card, and then you have the Irish system. Where else in Africa you have an Irish system?
I have seen the iris identification is working most of the time. It is very efficient, it's very quick. Within 3 seconds, it's able to identify the voter, and voting is going on closely.
The voters, a majority who support the call for recognition as an independent state, hopeful of a peaceful election and a step closer to the target. 3 top political parties have also been allowed to operate for the next 10 years. As the polls close, the tallying process has already kicked off, with the winner set to be declared within 7 days. For a country that has been seeking recognition 33 years on, the use of iris recognition to identify voters is a bold statement that it is ready for the table of the countries that fly their flag at the United Nations headquarters in New York, USA. Emmanuel Toe, Citizen TV, Hargeisa, Somaliland.
To better understand the context of these elections, it's important to take a brief step back in history. Somaliland was a British protectorate until 1960 when it united with Somalia. But then, after a devastating civil war, Somaliland declared its independence from Somalia in 1991. Since then, it's effectively functioned as a self-governing state. However, to this day, no country in the world has recognised Somaliland. That's a situation that both the incumbent party and the main opposition party are hoping to change. These elections are seen as a main step in that effort.
The more Somaliland continues on the path of democratic elections, the more you have healthy transition and healthy rotation of leadership, the more the world will begin to take Somaliland seriously and say, aha, here is a region in Africa which is producing democratic elections and also leading.
Thank you for this time to talk to you. And it is, as you have said, it's very peaceful here. Nothing, there's no any shipping happening. Everybody is calm. Everybody is maintaining peace at their best level. Everything is happening normally. Businesses are going on normally, and everybody is just patiently waiting for the results.
And what are voters looking forward to from whoever wins this election?
Who have mixed reactions depending on who they would prefer. So I would say right now it's very difficult to know maybe where the priority is, because some prefer the current president and others would prefer the opposition leader. But they are both calm. None of them is showing any heat or any heated arguments going on. They're just peacefully waiting for their preferred leader to win.
And what are you hearing when you talk to some of the voters when it comes to looking forward to the possibility of Somaliland being recognized as a nation?
I think they are very hopeful. They are very hopeful that they will be able to get recognition worldwide. This is something they have been waiting for a very long time. It's something they have hoped for a very long time. And even as they choose their leaders, they're looking at leaders who will be able to give them this recognition worldwide. Yeah.
And Nancy, how does Somaliland, from your vantage point, compare?
Now, Somaliland has held a long-delayed election amid hopes the new U.S. administration will support its bid for formal recognition as a sovereign state. For more on this, let's bring in Bloomberg's Ndiro Oganga, who is joining us from Kigali. So, Ndiro, what weight does this election cycle in Somaliland carry?
Jen, it's a really important election. It's pegged on the independence of this country. This is a country that declared independence from Somalia in 1991 after a civil war, but they've struggled to gain full autonomy and also gain international recognition. This election is expected to be a really tight race between the two leading candidates.
Élection présidentielle au Somaliland, cette région qui a déclaré son indépendance de la Somalie en 1991 n'est reconnue par aucun État. 1 million de personnes étaient appelées aux urnes pour choisir leur président. La correspondance régionale de Bastien Renouille.
Cette élection aurait dû avoir lieu il y a 2 ans, mais à l'époque, faute d'argent, le gouvernement avait dû les décaler, ce qui avait entraîné des manifestations qui avaient été réprimées. Il y avait eu 5 morts, mais en dépit de cette violence, le parti d'opposition Wadani affirme que, bien qu'imparfaite, la démocratie somalilandaise est fonctionnelle. Il dit avoir confiance dans le système électoral de son pays. Alors, quel est l'enjeu de ce scrutin ? Bien évidemment, déterminer qui sera le nouveau président, répondre à des questions de politique intérieure, mais surtout montrer que la démocratie fonctionne, car cela pourrait avoir...
Thank you very much. It adds to a list of similar elections that have held in the past. This is the 4th one. And the conduct of elections, the way in which the election is conducted, has improved since then. But generally, the same cannot be said, that kind of improvement cannot be said about the everyday governance and political landscape in the country, which is kind of polarized and dominated by, clan narratives, which is divisive in nature. So in general, it portrays Somaliland in a very, generous and development-oriented or democracy-oriented entity, but these are the problems and the challenges it needs to overcome.
But a lot of people will say that Somaliland has been relatively stable, more than Somalia itself and some of the neighboring countries. And why would global organizations like the United Nations, for example, the African Union, and other powerful nations fail to recognize Somaliland as an independent nation, given that it has been stable for more than 3 decades now, if you compare that to what we see even in Somalia itself?
Yes, that is the case. Somaliland has performed quite well compared to the neighboring countries, including Ethiopia and Djibouti. But the problem is the United Nations by itself is not an organization that has the authority to grant.
President Muse Bihi Abdi is seeking a second term. The elections were due 2 years ago. When Parliament delayed them, critics said he was trying to overstay in office. He voted in Hargeisa, the capital of the breakaway region of Somaliland.
Today is a historic and golden day for all Somaliland people. The people vote for anyone or any party they want to be their president.
Widely expected to be a close race between Abdi and opposition leader Abdirahman Mohamed Abdullahi.
Today is a happy day. We have been waiting for 7 years for Somaliland people to elect their leader.
People are voting at a time of growing regional tension. Ethiopia, Somaliland's landlocked neighbour, made a provisional deal with Abdi's government in January for a marine base and access to Somaliland's coastline. In exchange, Ethiopia has promised Somaliland greater recognition. It's something that Somaliland's longed for since it broke away from Somalia during a civil war more than 30 years ago. Nearly all countries don't officially recognise it. The port deal has infuriated Somalia, which has 3 times the population but lacks Somaliland's relative stability. People are waiting to see how the next president will handle the growing regional row.
There is no much visible difference between ideologically speaking, the two main political parties, but there are differences between the personalities of the contenders. And that's very important here in Somaliland. So one is often portrayed as a strong militaristic man, and the other as a soft diplomatic guy.
Both candidates support the port deal, but there's been no major visible movement on it in recent weeks. Election results aren't expected until next week. Malcolm Webb, Al Jazeera.
Voters in Somaliland cast their ballots for president on Wednesday.
Everybody votes in peace. Once they vote, they go home, relax, and enjoy the result.
The election comes as the breakaway Somali region sees international recognition within reach, after 3 decades of de facto self-rule. Though it declared independence from the Mogadishu government in 1991, it has not been recognized by any country. That's restricted access to international finance and the ability of its 6 million people to travel. President Muse Bihi Abdi, in power since 2017, is running against the main opposition party's candidate, Abdirahman Siro. The 2 candidates differ on domestic issues, but both have expressed support for a pact with Ethiopia that would grant Addis Ababa a strip of land in exchange for diplomatic recognition. Somaliland's representative to Kenya told reporters that the government would finalize the deal after the election, regardless of who wins. And there's also optimism that U.S. President-elect Donald Trump will be favorable to Somaliland's cause, with several State Department officials from Trump's first term publicly voicing support for recognition. Somaliland has mostly enjoyed peace since achieving autonomy in 1991, just as Somalia plunged into a civil war from which it has yet to emerge.
kaydso lacagtaada mar kasta iyo meel kasta. Ku dhex isticmaal adeegyada Somtel iyo iDahab. Ku xidha akoonkaaga bangiga oo ka dhex maamula lacagtaada. U soo wareegoo la jaanqaad dunida casriga oo ku maamulo abka dahabalaas nolol maalmeedkaaga maaliyadeed. Hadda kala soo deg App Store iyo Play Store abka dahabalaas.
Asalaamu calaykum waraxmatullaahi wabarakaatu. Magacaygu waa Dr. Musaaya Maxamed. Ku soo dhawaada Shifa Pharmacy. Halkan waxaan adeegyo ku haynaa farmasi ah oo ku xiran cliniga Medina Medical Clinic oo ku yaalo Jigjiga Mall wadada caanka ah oo Lake Street. Adeegyada waxaa ka mid ah delivery aan sameynaa oo xaafadda guriga lagu geenaa daawada dadka oo aan awoodin inay farmasiga imaadaan. Waxaan sameynaa travel medications dadka safraayo daawooyinkooda oo complete ah, vaccination dhakhtarkaagaan la shaqeynaynaa insha Allah wixii maaragtay caafimaadkaaga iyo daawooyinkaaga ku saabsan oo complete ah helaysaa. Convenience ka helaysid halkan Shifa Pharmacy waxaa ka mid ah clinic oo nagu degan oo Somali ay joogaan oo luqadaada maaragtay aad wax walba ku helaysid oo nextna farmasiga ku degan oo aad imaanaysid adoona maaragtay dhakhtarka wali ka dhamaanin daawooyinkaaga lagu sii diyaarin karo. mar waxaa dhacdo adoo clinic joogtid daawooyinkaaga inta lagu diyaariyo adoona ka dhamaanin dhakhtarka daawooyinkaagina hore u sii qaadatay. Hadda lacala ka tagtid delivery-gaas aan leenahay. Marka ku soo dhawaada Shifa Pharmacy.